The Galactic Council convened in the crystalline halls of Nexus Prime, their holographic forms shimmering with condescension as they reviewed the latest petition from the third rock orbiting Sol. High Chancellor Vextai's 4 eyes narrowed as he read the document aloud, his voice dripping with aristocratic disdain. The species calling themselves humans request admission to the Galactic Confederation, he announced, his translator implants rendering the alien syllables into a dozen languages simultaneously. They claim to have achieved faster than light communication and primitive spaceflight. A ripple of amusement passed through the assembled delegates. The Zephyrians' crystalline bodies chimed like wind chimes, while the Mordaki's tentacles writhed in what passed for laughter among their kind. Primitive indeed, scoffed Ambassador Krelon, her scaled hide shifting from blue to deep purple, a sign of amusement among her people. Their mathematics still relies on base 10 counting systems. They've barely mastered fusion energy, and their fastest ships can't even reach 10% light speed. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in the observation deck, her jaw clenched as she listened through the translation feed. As Earth's chief xenobiologist and the first human to set foot on an alien world, she had volunteered to witness humanity's formal introduction to galactic civilization. What she hadn't expected was to become the audience for their cosmic roasting. Their biology is laughably inefficient, continued another delegate, this one resembling a floating jellyfish with too many eyes. Single-strand DNA, carbon-based, requiring constant chemical fuel intake. And their lifespan, barely a century. How can such short-lived creatures contribute anything meaningful to our millennia-spanning projects? Chancellor Vextai raised one of his many hands for silence. Nevertheless, protocol demands we offer them the standard probationary membership. They can observe our proceedings and perhaps learn something useful before their inevitable extinction. Elena's fingers tightened around her datapad. 3 years she had spent on Kepler 442b, documenting alien ecosystems, while these beings treated her like an interesting pet. 3 years of condescending smiles and patronizing explanations of simple concepts her primitive mind could barely grasp. But Elena had been busy during those 3 years. Very busy. The meeting adjourned with humanity granted the cosmic equivalent of a participation trophy, observer status with no voting rights and limited access to galactic databases. As the delegates began to disperse, Elena stood and activated her personal communicator. Dr. Vasquez to Earth Command, she said quietly. Initiate Protocol Sigma, authorization code, Darwin 77. 24 hours later, the first reports began filtering in. It started with Tau Ceti, a minor industrial world in the galactic periphery. The planet's quantum communication array, a marvel of Zephyrian engineering that had taken 3 centuries to construct, simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged. Gone as if it had never existed. Then the Rigel shipyards disappeared. 12 massive construction platforms that had been building starships for the past millennium blinked out of reality in the span of a single heartbeat. Panic spread through the Galactic Council faster than a neutron star's gravity well. Within hours, reports flooded in from across their territory. The Vegan research stations gone. The Centauri defense grid erased. The ancient Mordaki archives containing 50,000 years of accumulated knowledge wiped from existence. Chancellor Vextai called an emergency session, his usual composure cracking like ice under pressure. What is happening to our infrastructure? He demanded. Our sensors detect no weapons fire, no energy signatures. These installations are simply ceasing to exist. Ambassador Krelon's hide had shifted to a sickly yellow, fear among her species. The pattern suggests some form of selective matter, dissolution, but the technology required would be impossible, finished the jellyfish-like delegate. No known science could achieve such precise large-scale annihilation. The energy requirements alone would exceed the output of a dozen stars. Elena cleared her throat from the observation deck. Every head, tentacle, and sensory organ turned toward her. If I may, she said, standing slowly, I believe I can shed some light on your situation. The human speaks. Chancellor Vextai's tone held equal parts surprise and irritation. Observer status does not grant you. Oh, but it does, Elena interrupted, her voice carrying a new edge. You see, you gave me access to your databases. Limited access, but access nonetheless. And we primitive humans were very good at finding patterns, especially in data you thought was safely encrypted. She tapped her datapad, and a holographic display materialized above the council chamber. Star charts, technical schematics, and what looked like impossibly complex mathematical equations filled the air. 3 years ago, when you first detected our signals, you made an assumption. You assumed that because we appeared primitive by your standards, we actually were primitive. But primitive is relative, isn't it? The equations began to shift and flow, forming three-dimensional models that hurt to look at directly. You see, while you've spent millennia perfecting faster-than-light travel and quantum communication, you never bothered to truly understand the fundamental nature of reality itself. You took existing principles and refined them, but you never questioned the principles themselves. Elena's smile was sharp as a neutron star's edge. We did. We questioned everything. And while you were building monuments to your technological superiority, we were unraveling the basic structure of spacetime. The models in the holographic display suddenly snapped into focus, revealing a framework of cosmic architecture that made several delegates recoil in apparent terror. What you're witnessing isn't destruction, Elena continued. It's editing. We've learned to access what you might call the universe's source code. Every atom, every quantum field, every fundamental force, they're all just variables in an equation, and equations can be modified. Chancellor Vextai's four eyes were wide with something approaching cosmic horror. That's impossible. The computational power required to manipulate matter at that scale would require a computer the size of a planet? Elena's laugh was devoid of humor. You're thinking too small, Chancellor. Why build a computer when you can reprogram reality to compute itself? She gestured, and another display materialized. A real-time view of the Milky Way galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of vanished installations, forming a pattern that was clearly deliberate. Every piece of your infrastructure we've removed has been replaced with something else. Something you can't see because we've programmed space-time itself to exclude it from your perception. Think of it as a parallel layer of reality, occupying the same coordinates as your space but invisible to your senses. The silence in the chamber was absolute. The question now, Elena said, her voice carrying across the stunned assembly, is what happens next. You called us primitive. You offered us scraps from your table while hoarding the galaxy's resources. Among yourselves, you treated us like children who might someday grow up to be useful. She stood, and every being in that chamber could feel the weight of human intention pressing down on them like the gravity of a collapsing star. But we're not children anymore. We're not primitive. We're not even playing by the same rules you think govern this universe. We've become something you never anticipated. A species that mastered not just science but the very foundations of existence itself. Elena began walking toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the crystalline chamber. You have 48 hours to decide humanity's place in this galaxy. Full membership, equal representation, and access to all galactic resources. Or, she paused at the threshold, or we'll show you just how creative we can get with our editing privileges. The door sealed behind her, leaving the Galactic Council in stunned silence. In the observation logs of that day, archived deep in the quantum vaults of Nexus Prime, a single notation would later be found. Species classification, human, threat, level, recalculate entire cosmological framework, status, no longer primitive, never were. The galaxy would never be the same.